And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Wrestler Report here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, and livinginblack.com. My name is Kitty Awadu, aka the Conscious Wrestler. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live. We come at you from 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 noon Eastern time. And that's 5 p.m. on Sundays. We join you live with the mastermind. It is an honor and a joy to be with you today here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on livinginblack.com. Today's date is Sunday, December the 7th, year 2025 in the Gregorian calendar, Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on livinginblack.com. And give me 1 second here. Let me send the second link out to my brother. In fact, I just realized I didn't even send the first link out to him. So I'm going to take a pause. I'll be right back with you here in just a little bit. Bear with me. It takes a minute to get all of this up and running. And I got one more link that I'm going to share. Bear with me. I apologize for my mistake. I thought I had plenty of time to get everyone on today. Baba Junius will be joining me very shortly on your favorite. We aim to be your favorite LIV Radio, LIV TV, livinginblack.com. I said, and let me just restart this. Well, I'll cut it off later. And we have some very, very important stories that we're going to be covering today. I say grand rising. I see you in house, Brother Eddie McCroy. And what a joy, McCory, I should say. What a joy it is to have you in the house today. And yeah, Brother Baba Junius will be joining me very shortly. My apologies for, I have to do so many things. And it has been a bit stressful here very recently, having to do so many things. And it's getting more and more complex. We are engaged in a month-long fund drive here on LB Radio. And let me just remind you about the fund drive. And I think I did get that link out to Baba Junius. Let me do it. I'm going to send it to him one more time. And hopefully he will be joining me very, very shortly. December 7th. And there we go. It is definitely off to for my brother right now. And I hate to keep apologizing. It's not easy. This is hard. Let me do this. I can at least let you look at me while I am talking to you on LIB Radio today. And hopefully, I was well worth waiting for. Let me tell you a little bit about what we have on the key for today. We're going to be talking about the headline news of the day from the West African nation of Benin, an attempted coup d'etat. A military coup they attempted the military coup. We're going to report on that from allafrica.com as well as aljazeera.com. We go to get many stories, and I do hear your brother, my brother, Baba Junius is in the house. Greetings, welcome, Aquaba, and my apologies, Baba Junius, for neglecting to send out the link earlier. Just too many things to do, too many buttons to push for my sake. I apologize to you.
No problem. Can you hear me?
I hear you. You sound wonderful today, my brother. I hope you are in equally good spirits today.
Indeed, I am. Looking forward to today's program.
Yeah, I was just telling everybody about the lineup that we have today, and I think a good place to start, I trust that this did cross your desk, that there was an attempted coup d'etat that took place yesterday in the West African nation of Benin.
Yeah, not a lot of details from what I've seen, and I got my information from Al Jazeera.
Mm-hmm.
The military thwarted the coup, and things are pretty much normal.
Mm-hmm.
A group of officers made an announcement that they had taken over the government. They shut down the government, but it seems that seemed like a rapid response, and the coup was thwarted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The coup attempt was against President Patrice Talon. And I did a little bit of follow up. Talon, a 67-year-old former businessman dubbed, quote, the Cotton King of Cotonou. And he is due to hand over the power next year after 10 years in office through, I don't know whether he's handing it over through another, a quote unquote democratic election or whatever, or he had just planned on stepping down. But 10 years is not bad for a person to be tenure and to be handing over the government. It sounds, from my perspective, like these officers envisioned themselves to be like what they perceive to be the president of Burkina Faso has been to Africa. And I think the news is reporting, they just overplayed their hand.
Yeah, from the little bit that I could gather, I think they didn't have the type of support they thought they had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty local. It wasn't spread out. There weren't the type of logistical operations that a lot of coups have, where they take over the media, they take over the capital, and they do certain other things. Although I think I heard that they attempted to close the borders and attempted to do some other actions, but I don't think it was as widespread revolution, or what they're calling a refoundation.
Mm-hmm.
They call themselves the Military Committee for Refoundation. I just don't think it was as broad based as they thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, from my understanding, and what I heard from you right now was just exactly accurate. Same thing that I had gathered. And from my understanding, the government, the tenure of the current president, Talon, in Cotonou has not been so bad. I did get a chance to visit Benin. I've been to Benin, what, one time, just one time, and had a wonderful time. It's a beautiful country, very poor country, and it does have a serious history that Africans in the West should know about. Benin was the former Dahomey Empire, which was a major departure from the continent at the hands of French enslavers. And so a lot of us, especially the island of Haiti, has a close relationship to Benin. And I've not heard anything out of Haiti regarding Benin. I don't know if Haitians are in any position to be able to respond to what is happening in Benin. But his apparently his prosperity in Benin over the past 10 years of his rule, Talon's rule, were not so bad for the Benin people. So one wonders then why would this group of authors attempt to take over the government and quote create a refoundation in Benin if things weren't really going so bad.
Well, there, as we know in world events and even local events, there are many layers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the players we think are at the top really aren't. They tend to be sycophants or puppets. So I think we have to dig pretty deep to find out what the real deal is, other than an attempt to destabilize the region. And of course, that's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
You call it the re-scramble for Africa, but I think it's more that's part of it, but it's also a part of trying to regain hegemony from the West, primarily, even though a lot of West Africans are Francophiles and they were under the French. It's under the last bastion of Western Empire, which is the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very serious there. So um, let me just say, take a moment here and send greetings to the LIB radio family. And I apologize again to everyone for the crazy start to today's show. I did not do create all the buttons that I should have pushed. But so for Africa One, I see you, beloved sister in the house, Hotep Mastermind panel, and global LIB family, she says. Queen Mother Kashiba, I see you, beloved, checking in, Sawubona. She says, Grand Rising family. And also, Oseo Kamal is in the house. Greetings, LIB radio family. So, all of us wish all of us the best for today. We're in the house and we have some very powerful stories that we have pulled up for our scrutiny today. Baba Junis, did you want to put anything on the table?
Yeah, I saw something, I believe it, I forgot to jot down the source, and it is talking about, it's called MAID, the Medical Assistance in Dying Act in Canada. It's euthanasia.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing it in some of the Five Eyes groupings, other than it's not in the United States yet. It will come. It's part of the global depopulation agenda. And they're saying that as many as 100,000 Canadians have been euthanized through this law, this medical assistance in dying. And this is something, I think the law was passed in 2016. So what the article is saying is there's been a steady increase in the number of deaths and the number of people taking advantage of it. There's some ethical issues about it. There are some concerns in terms of criteria, and some people are afraid that this is going to be a way where they just do away with. It's almost like what was that movie, Soylent Green?
Mm-hmm. Where they ate the old people.
Yeah. So I think we need to keep an eye on this because, like I said, it's in some of the Five Eyes. The Five Eyes are the Anglophile Commonwealth plus the United States. You're talking about England, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the United States. So somewhere down the line, this is going to come and get to the United States.
And from my understanding, doesn't Oregon currently have euthanasia laws in place that allow for people to
Assisted suicide?
assisted suicide, right?
I'm not sure. I mean, remember, who was it, Kevorkian or somebody like that?
Mm-hmm. Jack
That was
Kevorkian.
big. That was big in what, the 80s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I, again, don't be surprised if you don't see this type of legislation crop up all on a national level here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking. I just did a quick search, AI search, and it says euthanasia, particularly in the context of physician-assisted suicide, is legally permitted in Oregon under the Death with Dignity Act. This law, enacted in 1997, allows terminally ill patients to end their lives through self-administered lethal medications prescribed by a physician. So it is here in at least one state of the United States, Oregon.
Yeah, and again, there's so many other ways that the powers who shouldn't be are culling the human population. That's just one of them. I mean, you have what we're seeing now. Every day you see new studies coming out about the COVID uh, concoctions and how damaging and how lethal they are to human beings. So, and that's a global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do definitely agree. It's something we should all be alerted to and should be undeniably concerned about as well. But then, from another perspective, and I'm not saying this to support that position, I more agree with you because it's a slippery slope and it is going to keep expanding, keep creeping. But is there anything wrong with someone who is terminally ill and suffering great pain? Is there anything wrong with them deciding when and where or when they want to go out?
Well, I think on some levels, a lot of folks do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's been
I,
going
I,
on anyway.
I remember my mother when she was ill. She just told me she just didn't want to fight anymore, and she wasn't. It wasn't like she was on dialysis or she was on hooked up to machines or anything. She just felt it was her time.
She got
And
weary.
yeah, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
her cousin who they were raised together, and I called him Uncle Bill because they were so close. He had a stroke, and at that time he couldn't see. He could barely talk, but he was I sighed, I blind, I sighed. So he didn't want to live. And then another friend of mine, one of my peers, had a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
and we were visiting with him, and he said, "I don't want to live like this." And shortly thereafter, he went into a coma, and they put him in hospice. So I think I'm giving examples of people who have made decisions
Mm-hmm.
and followed through. My mother went into a coma, wasn't induced or anything like that. I just think she just, in her own mind, she brought it on. And so again, people make those decisions. People talk about suicide by cop, people who just act out knowing that they're going to be confronted and possibly taken out by law enforcement or whatever. And then certain people know that their behavior is unhealthy or deadly, but they do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many ways to die in the Western nations. And this I have written about. And I do say it is a part of eugenics and or not eugenics, is part of genocide as well as race suicide, race elimination. I wrote about this in the 1990s, 1997 book, Missing Assets. I had a chapter called So Many Ways to Die in the West.
Well, that when we talk about global depopulation,
Mm-hmm.
our viewers and listeners should understand that this is part and parcel of their agenda. They have white papers, they have policy statements, they have national security memoranda about this. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just us making these wild, hyperbolic claims or assertions. These are true. And when
Mm-hmm.
you look at the total picture, one of the things I want to talk about, global fertility rates are in decline. Now, keep in mind, this was, I got it from Citizen Watch report, and it's basically from a European perspective. They're sounding the alarm, especially among whites, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously we know throughout Africa, population, the demographic is on the rise. So
Mm-hmm.
that's their concern. This is part and parcel of the ultra right, the alt right. That's one of their alarm bells that they're clanging. That was that whole thing about in Charlottesville, they will not replace us. They're seeing what's happening with in Europe and even here, Trump's platform about the immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
that the criminals, rapists, things like that. So that's part and parcel of what we used to talk about in the 70s. Francis
Mm-hmm.
Rush raised it, what is it, Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole fear of genetic annihilation. And they say that it is real. They point fingers at George Soros and a couple of other people. But I say it's also part of a global movement, create hysteria,
Mm-hmm.
create animus and ill will, suspicion, and also what many people are talking about now here in this country, another civil war.
Yeah. And when we consider this idea of the elimination of white people on the planet, or what did Francis West Carlson call it?
Genetic
Annihilation or whatever,
annihilation, genetic
genetic
annihilation.
annihilation. That's not going to happen. It's a voluntary removal of themselves from the gene pool. If you, I've been studying this and writing about this from the perspective of Dr. Welsing, was the point I began this. And this would have been right around 1991 or so. And that was at a time I joined a think tank based in DC called Global 2000. Are you familiar with this group? It was based in DC, Global 2000?
No, but I think I've seen some of your. I've heard you talk about them in the past.
Yeah, it was very, very important group, and it talked. We studied, and then we produced a number of papers. I myself wrote hundreds of papers on the topics on demographics, population control, national security policies, but we also wrote extensively about the culture of infertility, and that was what my book, Missing Assets, talked about. And essentially, with missing assets, there were several things going on. One was the chemical castration of the population, meaning saturating the environment with endocrine disrupting chemicals, both for men and women, that reduced our fertility. Later, we had the book Our Stolen Future from Theo Colburn et al., which documented that whole process. But much of what was going on, is cultural. And the culture can be changed very quickly. But the problem about it is two problems. Number one, culture is like a huge ship steering through the ocean. And if you don't have strong controls over that ship, it can be very, very difficult to alter its course. And this infertility course South Korea has tried, Japan has tried, Germany has tried, England has tried, Singapore has tried, and none of them can alter the course of that ship. And the second thing about it is that there is also ignorance, Baba Junius. And the ignorance will have those of us, and I'm speaking specifically about African American people, will opt out of the gene pool because of stupid acts caused by ignorance. Now, tomorrow, we're going to take this topic on. We're looking at the culture of false beauty standards and the fake eyelashes, the fake nails, and the fake canacolon hair. All are anti-fertility.
That's interesting. I mean, I've heard many theories about it, but that's the first time I've heard it couched in anti-fertility. I've heard self-negation. I've heard self-hatred. I've heard, just fantasy. Just getting into this fakery and fantasy. But that's the first time I've heard in terms of how it being lethal.
Yeah, it is true. The caniculon hair, the fake eyelashes, the glue used to glue the fingernails and the eyelashes on, and the chemicals used to remove them. I will lay out evidence tomorrow. And this was based upon a request from our sister for Africa One. She says, will you please address this on one of your programs? And I said, absolutely, yes, I will address it. Now, I had talked about this many times before, but today, per her request, I went deep, deep, deep in it. And so this time I'm ready to report on it. And I invite all of our listening audience to be a part of tomorrow's broadcast, because the culture of fakery is much more than just an identity crisis among people who are going through the Stockholm syndrome, who are deeply embedded in the Stockholm syndrome. You know about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, it's Stockholm, but it's also to the point that, because the thing about when they studied the situation with Stockholm, the captives tried to ingratiate themselves with their captors, and they tried to do whatever they could to stop the abuse from happening. What we're seeing is we are embracing our captives' values, our captives' culture. And remember, the root word for culture for us is cultivate. That's what culture does for African people. We cultivate personalities, we cultivate societies and tribes, and ultimately nations. And so we're in a uniquely devastating situation where not only are we trying to minimize the abuse, and you see that again, you see the same thing in abusive relationships, male-female relationships, where the woman defends the guy who's abusing her if somebody tries to intervene. And so not only are we trying to ingratiate ourselves to limit the abuse, but we're starting to mimic their behavior. And they have us in this situation. And I saw something the other day, and I didn't know how I could get it in and bring it in. This white writer by Charles Hugh Smith. You see him, he's like an economist, and he's a social critic. So his latest book is Ultra Processed Life. And he's talking about how the lifestyle, the culture, the values, he's calling it alluringly, aggressively marketed illusion, fakery.
That's right.
It's addictive by design, lethal over time, disconnected from reality, synthetic versus nature. And he's obviously his his audience are white people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
he,
does he go into the health holistic aspects of it, or is it just a?
yeah. I mean, look at he has there's a couple of articles on Zero Hedge, and he
Mm-hmm.
has a new paperback book out called Ultra Processed Life, and he does that. He does that. Not
Mm-hmm.
not as thorough as say you would be, and I can't really say that, but just from the excerpts that I've seen, it's not as thorough as you are in terms of scientific background. He does talk about how the food is worthless, it's not nutritious, and as we all know, it's designed to be addictive, and it has no nutrients and that whole piece. So he does cover that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll check
But
out that book, Ultra
he
Processed Life.
yeah, his name is Charles Hugh Smith. And there
Mm-hmm.
are, like I said, there are several.
Yeah, I do see the book, Ultra Processed Life.
And so
Um,
again, with
Baba
that,
Junius, you. Oh, that's me.
no,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
just
my
saying.
screen is locking up.
Oh, okay. Now, you're fluid from what I can see. You haven't frozen. You're not frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not, from what I see,
So I'm going
you're
to put
not.
up a link to that. Yeah, okay. I'm going to put up a link to that book for for our listening audience who someone wants to get it. There are a couple of messages in the chat. Did you get everything in that you were saying there? I'm sorry, I
Well, I
got
mean,
blocked out for a sec.
I just wanted to use that as a compliment to what you're talking about and what you're going to do
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow on LIB to show you and to show our viewers just how extensive and pervasive this is. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and when you link in that euthanasia piece, that's just one aspect of
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very good. Couple of comments in the chat. Let me just point to Queen Mother Kashiba. Does Benin's proximity to Nigeria have any significance? Oh, yes. In fact, Benin is a part of it's a key and significant to the Yoruba people, Yoruba culture. And in Nigeria, Nigeria is a amalgamation of three empires. There is the Yoruba Empire, there's the Igbo Empire, which also extends from the southern Nigerian delta into Cameroon. And then there is the Hausa Empire, which is in the north of Nigeria. The Hausas are Islamic. So, yes, there is a distinct connection between Benin and Nigeria. But unfortunately, this is a legacy of the Congo Conference, aka the Berlin Conference, 1884, 1885, where they not only divided up Africa, but they split powerful groups into French or English dominance and instruction and governance. And so, as a consequence of that, Benin and the Yoruba of Nigeria became separated, as did the Igbo, and to a lesser extent, the Hausa.
Keep in mind, while we're talking about this particular region, primarily West Africa, maybe parts of the Sahel, this policy was continent wide. They did it
Mm-hmm.
all over.
That's right.
That's when you look at how they've been able to successfully destabilize the whole continent. That's how they did it. They put one group against another, and there's a book. It's probably out of print. It's called Race and Culture Contacts in the Modern World by E. Franklin Frazier. Most of us are
Mm-hmm.
familiar with E. Franklin Frazier with the Black
Mm-hmm.
YZ. He was a sociologist. He took his sociology skills and looked at colonialism and imperialism in Africa, breaking it down on all the levels, how the plantation system worked, how It impacted on the economics, how it disrupted the familiar system, the structure, and all of that. And if you can get your hands on it, I'd encourage you to read it. And keep in mind, I think it was written probably in the 40s or 50s. And you get a good idea just how devastating that system is, because we're still seeing the remnants of it today.
That's right.
You had, he talked about the mining, the plantation. So what these people come in and they virtually enslave you, force you to work in, they call them monocultural, these single agrarian crop type situations that are not indigenous. Yeah, they're indigenous there, but the natives had a different approach to their survival. They might have used particular crops, but they also used others. But because of the priority that the Europeans put on these crops, these cash crops, they forced our people to raise, cultivate, and harvest them to the detriment of their own natural cultural inclination to do other things. That's why the continent is so tricked up. And all you have to do is look at how they did it, not just there, but they did it in the Caribbean. They also did it here in the United States.
You reminded me of the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, by the late, great Walter Rodney.
Yeah.
And they created those monocrop cultures in order to satisfy the tax demands and the tax demands of the colonial powers. It's a wonderful book. I hope you have had a chance to read it.
Yeah.
Couple more comments have come in. We were talking about youth and nature. Queen Mother Kashiba wrote, if people have no jobs and no prospects for the future, what do you expect? AI is looming. And yeah, she makes a good point. What do we expect? What is expected there? Not wanting to, young people not wanting to engage with each other, marry, have children, raise families.
But they don't know how. I mean,
they don't know how.
Social media has disrupted a whole process. Not only social media, but the scamdemic, the isolation, the forced shelter in place, and all that other kind of nonsense. And keep in mind, this was not a whole. This wasn't 20 years. It's only been 5 years within the context of that. Now you layer that on top of social media, the negative impact of social media, and this is one of the things I want to talk about today. There was a report from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Artificial intelligence can already replace 11.7% of the entire U.S. workforce now. And this is you can find this at www.technocracynews.com. It's impacted 1.2 trillion in wages. There's this thing called the iceberg index. It's a concise modeling of where artificial intelligence can already replace almost 12% of the U.S. labor. That's right now. Keep in mind, artificial intelligence is being incrementally rolled out to the point where it will be ubiquitous.
That's right.
A lot of the things that I've been telling people, about folks complaining about their electricity bills, it has nothing to do with their own consumption. It's about these resource data collection and storage systems. And not only are you going to be dealing with your energy, your electricity, but it's also your water. Having said all that, they're pushing, when she talks about people won't have anything to do, the people who survived the culling, and there's a major culling of humanity going on as we speak. Look up a universal basic income, guaranteed basic income. It's been tested around the world. Just type in your browser or go to your search engine and type in places where universal basic income have been tested. It's a global phenomenon. It's not universal yet, but that's going to be their solution. Remember the Great Reset. You will own nothing and be happy. Not only won't you own anything, but more than likely you won't have a job.
Mm.
You're going to be living in these urbanized 15-minute cities that on the surface, the way they market it is going to be great. It's going to be like the Jetsons and all of that. But really, you're talking about techno tyranny, techno fascism, techno feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
And the billionaire bros and some of these other Silicon Valley types, they're going to be part and parcel of the hierarchy.
And they plan on leaving us way behind. We did a report on the impact of AI on the larger economy. And we did it, maybe it was a little less than a month ago or so. And I am teaching an AI course, an extended 28-week course on using AI for anyone who doesn't want to get left out. But in the report that we did, and I'm recalling this off the top of my head, is that AI is expected to displace as many as 80% of the workforce, has the potential to displace as much as 80% by 2030. And 2030 is just around the corner. So, yeah, you're right. It is a looming danger. In the face of that, from a Marxist position, of a socialist Marxist position, is there anything awful about a universal basic income?
I think when you look at what I'll say, I'll have a caveat to that.
Mm-hmm.
What I also wanted to talk about today was cognitive diminishment. What they're saying is AI is making us lazy,
Mm-hmm.
turning us into zombies, mindless beings, helpless, and dependent on AI machines.
That's right.
So within that context, and again, there's going to be a great culling, and we're seeing it all around.
That's right.
Well, our generation, Keedy, you and I generation, we're boomers. So when we pass away or something happens, people don't say, well, he was 70, he was at 77, he was at 80. And they're ignoring the fact that all these young people are dropping like flies.
That's right.
And they don't want people to connect the dots and make the linkages. So again, it's a major thing where they're trying to depopulate large swaths of humanity, billions. Then they're going to impose this AI. So from a Marxist and a socialist point of view, when Marx talked about labor and how the socialism, the idea of European socialism comes from, well, the workers should share in more of the profits. Remember, during the Industrial Revolution, child labor, there was major exploitation, major workplace abuses, things like that. And there was a major pushback, particularly in the United States, against organized labor. But they were forced to make certain concessions because strikes were costly and they were very disruptive. Mm-hmm. And because they were so vicious in they being the owners, people like the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and all those folks, and bringing in the militia and Pinkertons and all that. When you study organized labor in this country, you see how ruthless ownership is. And Marx was just talking about, hey, cut the workers a break.
Mm-hmm.
Socialism, as it is viewed by Europeans, because it was through the eyes of the Industrial Revolution, whereas indigenous people looked at life from a communal aspect, Ubuntu, mm-hmm. and their societies were set up, they had divisions of labor and things like that, but it's fundamentally different than the European.
Mm-hmm. All right. We do see a comment has come in. Eddie McCroy is in the YouTube family, and he says, Grand Rising, the housing all have smart meters that is controlled and read from their base. I had a repair person come by to check my washer because it stopped. Agitator stopped working. They pulled out a com and the statement cut off there. Um, but yeah, it is the AI. You're talking about the Internet of Things, and more. The internet is now wireless access to your washing machine and the smart meters and everything else. People are wiring their bodies up. Attachables are monitoring their blood
Yep.
pressure and everything, all wireless. It's becoming more and more ubiquitous. And at a certain point, we have to ask the question, is there an ultimate or an ulterior outcome that maybe the public is not getting? All of these are conveniences. And one of the things that the opposition does to further suppress us is to create more and more conveniences for us. Fast food restaurants are convenient for us. Now, DoorDash, you don't even have to leave your home. You don't even have to get on the phone. Just type in what you want and then text and send it to whomever you want it and type in a code. Through convenience, are we being sucked into a trap like a fly into a Venus fly trap?
Of course, that they have to market it one way. They're not going to come out and tell you, okay, we're going to enslave you, even though they say that to themselves. The white papers that they share amongst their group and their policy papers, just like you always we make reference to the Negro dilemma. Basically, that was commissioned by the ultra rich to tell them and prepare them for what they wanted to do to us, which is they recognized that it was going to create major tension and almost have some irreconcilable conflict if we stayed here. So they wanted to come up with ideas. How can they, from their perspective, make it more palatable for them to deal with us? Either kill us off, send us somewhere, or just reduce us to zombies or something. And so that's what we're seeing. And I'm saying all this to say because that's what they're saying about AI. Oh, it's so convenient. Oh, it's going to save you so much time, so much energy, so much. But meanwhile, again, cognitive diminishment. See, you use AI and you use it in a way that's consistent with how you think and what your goals are. Well,
and that's the function of culture.
Well, but most people aren't using it that way. It's a scapegoat. Okay, I got to do this report. Let me AI. This I'm going to do this AI. They're not doing second, third, fourth level thinking. It's
That's
not
right.
indigenous kind of thing. Well, okay, how is this going to impact us 7 generation hence? They're not thinking about it. And we already see the people that warned us about social media, their warnings are coming true. Our brains are literally being rewired, not necessarily organically, but because of the hormones that watching that and the physiological reaction to the stimulation and all that kind of stuff is actually sending these hormones. We're being, as the old kids used to say, throwed off. And that's real. And they'll say that, but that information is suppressed. Like you said, ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means that you're unaware to the point you are in a stupor. Thus, you become stupid.
Yeah. A couple of comments I want to share. Rory 10X is in the house. He asks, wasn't there an African conference where some countries voted to stay with their colonial masters and some did not. Um, I don't know if there was any conference. We do know that individual leaders that had been propped up by, especially this was very problematic amongst the French countries, where it wasn't only the French, but individuals leaders were propped up by them, and they did not want to lose that position of disproportionate wealth that they and their families, their clans had been enjoying. So there was dissension when it came to one, from separating from the former colonial masters, and two, the idea of forming the Pan African Union as solidarity amongst them. There was a divergent two groups. There was one was the, I think, the Morocco group, the Casablanca group, and I can't remember what the other group was called, but one says, let's consolidate and form one unified Africa now. And that conversation took place in 1963. And then the other group said, no, let's stabilize our economy, stabilize our countries, and then we'll unite Africa. There was a Casablanca group, and I can't remember the name of the other group, but Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Kenneth Kaunda, and then others, unfortunately, their group, which was unify as soon as we possibly can, their group lost out to the other group. And now we can see a union of 54 largely fractured countries.
But also, we have to remember and recognize many, as great as some of those leaders are, and we view them as heroes, they had been trained by the oppressor. Didn't mean that they were totally brainwashed or totally locked into a Eurocentric way of doing things, but looking at their situation, they adopted and adapted to many of the systems that were imposed upon them, and they just reconfigured them slightly, thinking that that would serve their benefit them and serve their purposes, when in effect they still had to deal with global economics and neocolonialism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much that we failed, it's just that it was just so overwhelming to try to deal with and to come to some serious righteous solutions, particularly when we had been enculturated by the European. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to make a comment. This is a slight tangent. We talk about the corruption in Africa and et cetera. Historically in Africa, it was a custom to give a gift if you were petitioning, say, the chief or king or whatever. It wasn't a bribe, it was just showing deference or some kind of
A tribute.
a tribute, homage to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Europeans, is different. It's grift, it's graft, it's corruption. And that's endemic and it's embedded in their system. So there's a difference between native, just giving of a gift, a tribute to this wholesale corruption that we find in Urugu. And unfortunately, that has been integrated into the livelihood and the infrastructure in Africa.
Mm-hmm. A couple more comments have come in. Let me share those. For Africa One, will African leaders go along with the AI narrative or seek other alternatives more humane, more akin to Ubuntu? That's a wonderful question coming from a very articulate sister. And I think that I have the ability to introduce a more mature African themed idea of how we should be using AI. That's one of the primary reasons that I am doing this extensive course on it. I think that we can use AI in education. We can use it in filmmaking, although I do not agree that traditional filmmaking should be displaced by AI. It should be just used as an adjunct to it. Right now, storyboards are created in order to set up scenes for shooting a movie. Well, why not just create the storyboard using AI panels, 10 seconds a piece, instead of just a static? So I do see a place where we can use AI from a perspective of an African centered perspective. Although I will say that the idea of putting the genie back into the bottle regarding AI is probably not going to work. So we should plan for incorporating it into our what we envision the future to be like. Your thought?
I don't think that attempting to put the genie back in the bottle is going to work. Number one, because the vast majority of our people aren't aware of just how pervasive artificial intelligence is and how ubiquitous it's going to become.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, we're so distracted by these deliberate fake news, these issues that aren't germane, don't have anything really to do to our day-to-day survival or our long-term planning. We're so distracted and discombobulated. It makes it, and then we get into a reactionary mode, which makes it easy to manipulate us, and that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, Queen Mother Kashiba, I was searching for the other group that I was talking about, the Pan African Now versus the Let's Do It Later, and that was the Monrovian group. Thank you, Queen Mother Kashiba. The Monrovian group, I believe, was the group that says delay it, put it off until later. And I'm pretty sure that was what their assignment was. But I do advise anyone and everyone to look up the things that we talk about here and confirm it in your own mind. And if you can, correct us from time to time. Thank you, Queen Mother Kashiba, for doing that. A couple more comments. There's a long comment on the YouTube from Sandra. Let me see if we can get through this one right now. It takes a subject turn in a different direction. She's talking about education. And before that, Eddie McCrory writes, our brains are computers being reprogrammed or updated. And I think that's a good place for her comment. Sandra Muhammad writes, learning. Just read an article, book, The Digital Delusion, $400 billion. Over the past 2 decades, educational technology has exploded from a niche supplement to a $400 billion economy, $400 billion juggernaut woven into nearly every corner of schooling. She writes, a couple more comments. Many educational platforms openly track behavior, build long-term profiles, and use the same engagement-driven designs that keep adults endlessly scrolling on TikTok or Instagram. The business model is to hook kids early and create customers for life. For more than 3 decades, researchers have known that students comprehend and remember less when reading from screens than from paper. And that's a pretty solid statement. I think she's put something real serious together there. And I hope Sister Sandra Muhammad continues to pursue this and become an expert on this. I personally think all of us living across the diaspora should pick a topic and become absolute experts in that, and then take our expertise to the future. That's one of the ways we will not be displaced by AI.
Well, she used the term customer, and that's on a lower level. Yes, they want to maintain their economic system. They want people to buy into it, but it's deeper and more insidious than that. It's really about enslavement. It's really about creating zombies who go along with the programming. Because keep in mind, you're being programmed. Keep in mind, your a lot of your data, personal data, a lot of your biological data is being harvested. That's the insidiousness of this whole process, where they're building a profile on you as a customer, as a consumer, so they can manipulate you, so they can sell it to their buddies, and their buddies can sell you stuff or get you into situations that they know based on your patterns that they can control you and manipulate you. Because at the bottom line, it's not about development and self-actualization. It's all about control, manipulation to a much smaller segment of humanity. Because keep in mind, their goal is to eliminate billions of us, either through these wars, through the vaccines, and you just look at the patterns between like AZT and COVID, same people, same characters. Look at the
It was not AZT, but AIDS.
well, I'm saying AZT was their quote unquote solution, and it
Mm-hmm.
turned out to be more lethal.
It was a toxic chemotherapy.
Right. So that's one of the ways that they have eliminated people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to keep this in mind. And it's the way that it gets down to what Kitty always says. One of the best ways to fight back is to cultivate a healthy mind, body, and spirit. Because if you do that, you become less susceptible to their fakery, because you'll be able to think clearly, you'll be able to discernment. Because keep in mind, as we are right now, the threshold between reality and fakery is getting narrower and thinner and thinner. But if you have a sound mind and you're willing to use it in a survival mode for you, your family, and our people, we become less of victims, and we have a better chances of survival.
Mm-hmm. Looking in the comment section, the comment from Nguvu Sawabona got in late, but how do we properly prepare ourselves for the future? Perhaps advertise and have a roundtable via Zoom invitation? ? And that's a good idea, but I'm not going to do it. I did that. There was an entire Pan-African course that I had set up and prepared to teach. I was prepared to teach a 12-week long course on Pan-Africanism, and I set it up on Zoom, set aside my time to teach the course on Friday nights, same time every week. And after 4 weeks, there was no participation. I did the best I could to make sure the course was very relevant. And I always asked the students, what do you want this course to do? What do you want out of it? And eventually everyone just drifted away. It was me and one or two other persons. I said, I can do that with a phone call. So I think it's a good idea. And Guvu, if you organize it and send me an invitation, I will be there, providing that the time does not counteract anything else I'm doing at the same time. But I have tried that. And if we're talking about what's a proper way to go forward, you and I have always talked about, Baba Junius, the importance, the critical importance of a Black media serving our particular self-interests with integrity and bound upon the righteous pathway of Ma'at. We've always talked about that critical need for this Black serving media. And this one is right now at the verge of shutting down. We're doing our December fund drive, and I want to thank you, Queen Mother Kashiba, for Africa One, Eddie, and so many others for contributing to this fund drive. but the majority of people who listen to LIB radio do not support it. And as a consequence, it's a majority rule.
Yeah, and sadly, that's their goal, to either force us into a position where they can acquire us,
Or shut up and
or
go away.
yeah, or just shrivel and die. And
Hmm.
that's their goal. Because see, we've been under relentless attack. They deplatformed you, they demonetized you. So this is not just oh well, this just happened. It's because of bad management, or because we didn't foresee certain issues. This is a deliberate attack on a righteous medium. Look at what they've done just in the past, going on 6 years. He's been deplatformed. He's been demonetized. Even when they couldn't justify it, they did it so he would have to waste his time appealing and going back to challenge their behavior and some of their actions. And so the worst and the most disheartening aspect of all of this is that we're allowing this to happen. You know, we assume because you have righteous intent that the Creator is going to intervene and save us. Yes, the Creator is intervening, but we need material support. We need people to step up and make a contribution. There's this medium, it's called Reader Supported News. They beg all the time. I get their news feeds and things like. Half the time I don't even open them because I'm annoyed at their begging. But I understand their position. I grasp what they're up against because we ourselves are up against it. I've been what was it, shadow banned. Well, I'll put something up, I can see it, but the algorithms filter and they drive traffic away, so you don't see it unless you're specifically looking for it. So they have figured out a way to undermine the very benefit of the World Wide Web, universal resources and universal information.
And Sister Sandra Muhammad in the YouTube chat agrees with the point you continue to make, that the deliberate process of this is called creating zombies. She highlighted that word. I agree, zombies. I've seen the effects on my students, and that is from this digitization of everything her students have been absorbed into. The younger generations now, she's teaching, I guess that would be what, Gen Z or millennials? I can't remember. I can't keep it all in my mind. But yeah, it's happening. It's happening in real time. Our people seem to not be able to compete against it. Brings me back in my mind to game theory. We don't understand there is a game. We don't understand the nature of the game. We don't understand the nature of the players in the game who are competing against us. And we don't understand what the prize is. Baba Junius, I see the prize as control over the planet for the next 500 years. And I believe that it can only be secured by conscious people from an African lineage, using Ma'at as our basis for governing and guiding this planet.
But that's all the more reason they want to shut you down. That's all the more reason they don't want people to see what I write or to see my blogs or when I was doing videos, because they know that idea, that seed is out there, and that seed is the seed of the Creator, and it can take root and it can blossom. So they're trying to kill it. just like they're trying to kill the human spirit. Bobby Wright wrote an essay called Menticide, this
Mm-hmm.
psychopathic racial personality. And he took a concept that had been defined and developed by the United Nations, and we now know that the United Nations is part of the one world government, the means they want to use to enslave the whole world. And he turned it against them and showed that they are trying to destroy our minds, literally. That's part of what I call the omnicide. Some people are calling it the omni war. You called it World War VI. I'm saying omnicide because they want to, just like you said, they want to control the planet, but they want to do it by usurping the natural order. That's Seth. That's Set. That's Satan. That's Lucifer. That's that kind of mentality that they have, that ethos that they're moving towards as we speak at an accelerated pace. You mentioned 2030. They want to have this infrastructure up and running by then. These data centers, these storage centers, that's just the beginning. They're going to access the information they get from the drones, from the satellites, from our own biometrics, and those who are foolish enough to embed these devices in themselves. That all of that is going to these data centers, which will be used to harvest, to surveil, to monitor us, and to address immediately. Just like if you want to see what I'm talking about, look at the Chinese social credit system. This is not just in the cities, it's urban, suburban, and rural. And it's on a global level. It sounds strange, it sounds scientific, science fiction, but no, this is what they want. In addition to killing off the vast majority of us.
Do the majority of their people agree with that?
Majority of their people are unaware. They don't know. They don't know
If
this
it
is happening.
were made aware, would they agree with it?
They agree with it as long as that they think that it's primarily aimed at us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize that they're part and parcel of it too. Because keep in mind, when they were doing the mind control experiments, they did it on U.S. soldiers. They did it on citizens in New York City, gas in the subways, doing the pollution in San Francisco. The people who are always talking about the chemtrails, that's them. That's designed against Euro-America. I mean, I feel sorry for the MAGA people. They don't realize that they're being duped and used. They bought into elements of MAGA, primarily the economics as well as the racial aspect of it, but they don't realize they're being duped. Trump just signed that bill. I wanted to talk about that last week or whatever. The Genesis mission, the AI infrastructure thing. I did mention it, but they don't understand that's part and parcel to all the things that we're talking about. That's one more nail in the coffin. They're slipping the noose tighter and tighter.
Mm-hmm.
These are the billionaire bros, the PayPal mafia, Silicon Valley, which is really the CIA. The CIA funded them. And who funds the CIA? And that's the banks, and tied up with BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and all these other hedge funds and all that other stuff. It's all part and parcel of controlling everything. And I just want to segue in with that. We're seeing Netflix is set to acquire Warner Brothers. So my question is, where's the Department of Justice? Where's the SEC? Where's the whole antitrust thing? Guess what? Probably will not be any other than a whimper of opposition to that.
Just like their control over media ownership.
Exactly.
We're seeing it's just steadily ongoing. The big story of the week was Netflix has acquired Warner Brothers and I think the Discovery Channel, whereas
It's finalized.
they finalized it. And they did get that right out of the hands of tech mogul Larry Ellison, who's been in the headlines of recent for acquiring Paramount and CBS. And he was going after Warner Brothers. Now Netflix acquires, and here's the story. Tech mogul Larry Ellison's Paramount was poised to buy Warner Brothers and Discovery, but lost out to Netflix, setting the stage for a legal fight that could shape the future of Hollywood. Netflix has agreed to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery for $72 billion in a deal that also has an enterprise value of $82.7 billion. This includes a $5.8 billion breakup fee, meaning if it's broken up, that the deal is broken up and it doesn't go through, then they get $5.8 billion right off the bat. When it comes to you and I doing the December fund drive, we're attempting to counteract this craziness going on. Then in the background, $82.7 billion they're putting into this acquisition of Warner Brothers. Maybe after Netflix acquires Warner Brothers and grows even bigger, maybe they'll lower all their prices and put in quality programming that's going to uplift your and my family. Or not.
I wouldn't hold your breath in anticipation of that type of decision making. In the beginning, they may hold the prices because they're setting up a monopoly. And behind the scenes, it's the same people. It may not be Ellison people, but it's the same group of people, the same tribe that owns all this. And they've been saying they're going to do this for, some say, thousands of years. It's just that now they're in a position to make it happen. And when you look at what the so-called conspiracy theorists are saying, using the tribe's own words, but more importantly, their behavior, you see that it's real.
We remind you, our listening audience, December, we're doing a fund drive. And we're asking each of you to do your part. A number of people did contribute this week, but unfortunately, the number of people who did contribute is less than one contribution per day. There was a time, Baba Junius, when we would do a month-long fund drive on LIB Radio. I think the highest we ever reached in 1 month was $21,000. That allowed us to cover over 4 months worth of our expenses.
But keep in mind,
at that time, this was running, we had quite a sophisticated machine running over here, but right now it's kind of simplified itself.
Well, keep in mind that the numbers in terms of accessibility to streaming services were very limited. Our share of the market, quote unquote, was much wider. Because I can remember when I started with the Black World Today, we were one of the first. We had a humongous listenership. Same thing with Neil when he started. But unfortunately, we were not able to translate that popularity, number one, because the technology and the availability made it watered it down. But when you're engaged in righteous endeavors, Set and his minions do whatever they can to control not just people's minds, but also the playing field. And
Mm-hmm.
so that this is what we're seeing. See,
Yeah.
budgets, and I say this, and I said this, when I was on council out here. Budgets determine priority.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, well, we want clean streets, but you don't cultivate your citizens to clean their own property, and you don't cultivate a desire to buy the equipment to sweep the streets or suck up the leaves or do whatever needs to be done, it's really not important, no matter how much you talk about it, because you're not willing to put out the money. You're not willing to dice up that slice and say, okay, we're going to take a little bit more from this here and use it for this. And the fact that they're willing to expand their operations to create a virtual monopoly. Because remember, 50 years ago, CBS, NBC, ABC, Mutual, and all, they were competitors. Now, not so much. And those three channels or networks now have given rise to literally hundreds of them, thousands of them. And when we talk about programming, and they don't call it programming for nothing, they're doing it to create a consciousness, a mindset, values, and I call it the 3 B's. They want to influence what you buy, how you behave, and what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the various changes in, like one of the viewers said early on, they're trying to get youngsters at an early age. And yes, they want customers, but they also want to influence what you believe, what you buy, and how you behave.
Mm-hmm. A few more stories have crossed our desk. Let me just one quick comment just came in. Gus is in the house. Always great to have you with us, Gus. He says it comes down to what Brother Junius talks about. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And yeah, I don't think that can be ignored. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request, except for too many things get blocked, don't get done because of WIFM.
Well, the WIFM, there's nothing wrong with the WIFM. If your goal is to do something that's beneficial for the collective,
For us.
yes, for us. Unfortunately, all too often, the WIFM, because we live in a selfish and a very predatory culture, is so that somebody can lord it over. You can have the Aryan model. What's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. Might makes right. On and on and on. That's the kind of ethos that they have, breaking it down to the most succinct levels. Whereas Ma'at, Ubuntu, the whole notion of the collective, the whole notion of being so responsible that you're planning for 7 generations into the future, and you want to ensure that these plans and these ideas come to fruition, that's totally alien to the Aryans. That's not how they roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A couple more stories. I wanted to just touch on this one story, and that is the larger economic crisis impacting the United States. Someone had put a YouTube video in my inbox, and I did check it out. It seemed that the YouTube video was a bit hyperbolic, but it did make some valuable points, such as it said 720,000 layoffs, rent prices explode, and RV living, 10 US states are out of control. This was from 2025. And it talked about these dilemmas, which are actually very real. California leads in RV homelessness. Over 150,000 people are living in vehicles or vans amidst $2,587 average rents. And metro spikes like San Jose, 3,199 they're asking for rent. Nevada, Reno rents are up 79% from 2020 to 2024. Legal Bureau of Labor Management land enables dispersed RV camping as wages lag. It talks about similar processes in Colorado, Denver, 4,000 people, vehicle homelessness. Hawaii, New York, extreme costs of rent, etc., drive high, despite high incomes and high fuel prices. They fuel RV shifts and evictions. So, lastly, it contrasts these against low rent states like North Dakota, where the average cost of rent is $1,077. It shows a very sharp contrast. So, Brother Junius, the people are being driven out of their homes, living in RVs and buses, and sometimes living in their cars.
Right, right. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I mentioned it, U.S. household debt rose to 18.4 trillion in the third quarter of 2025. Student debt, 1.65 trillion. Keep in mind that the real cause of inflation is the increase in the money supply, meaning the increase in currency in circulation, which in a fiat, totally fiat, unbacked dollar just makes the dollars in circulation less and less valuable and worth less and less. So when I would suggest that you go and look on your browser, your search engine, in terms of M2, which is a money supply. Let's look at the money supply from the time prior to COVID to now, because there was stuff going on in the big banks with the repo markets, and they were putting more and more money into circulation. They were doing other things to try to stave off certain collapses. That is what is happening. That is why people are suffering. We're not at the point where it takes a wheelbarrow of dollars to buy a loaf of bread, but we are seeing a vastly devalued dollar in here internally, domestically. Plus, the BRICS and others are moving to de-dollarize and to knock the dollar off its perch as the reserve currency for the world. That's why the United States, the American empires and such, this is going crazy. They're having conniptions. That's why they want to bum rush Venezuela. That's why they want to bum rush other places. They also they know that China has a strategic monopoly on rare earth processing, not necessarily the minerals, but the whole processing. So they're going crazy because they see their empire in collapse. Plus, ultimately, they realize they really can't fight a real war, so they have to keep on beating up on these weak countries.
Okay. I see another story here. I want to bring this one in. President William Ruto has joined other world leaders in witnessing the signing of a historic peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Washington, D.C., United States. This happened yesterday. The agreement signed by Presidents Paul Kagame of Rwanda and Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC is aimed at ending a 30-year-old conflict in eastern Congo that has claimed millions of lives and destabilized the wider Great Lakes region. Ruto described the accord as a monumental diplomatic milestone, quote unquote, and a decisive step towards lasting peace. The conflict has destroyed livelihoods, destabilized our region, and threatened the future of the entire Great Lakes region and the African continent, he said at the signing ceremony held at the United States Institute of Peace on Thursday. So that would have been the 5th. Your comments?
That's great. While I was looking for information about what was going on the continent, one headline, I believe it was either from Al Jazeera or Africa Now or African News, was that fighting broke out 2 days after they signed the agreement.
Yeah. Well, the fighting really has been ongoing since Trump announced the agreement, the peace settlement, a month or so, more than a month ago. The fighting has been going on. So it's almost like it's not the same, but it reminds us of what's happening in Palestine with the so-called Palestinian peace plan. It's no plan unless the Israelis can put down their arms and stop killing Palestinians.
Yeah, but that's just a PR scam. Again, we're talking about fakery. House, there was no signing, or they said, well, this will be valid when Hamas does this, and that. And all the while, the Israelis were bombing. They were continuing to destroy and undermine their infrastructure. And in addition to that, they were going after land on the West Bank, and plus they were engaged in attacks against Lebanon, Syria, and I think the Houthis. So this whole notion that Israel they want peace and this is strictly a defensive posture, and what their behavior is because they're under siege, that's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It's BS. The situation in Africa, again, like you said, there's an ongoing re-scramble for Africa because of the resources, because of the country, topography. They want the natural resources, but they also want to have these new places where they can boost tourism and bring more Europeans to the continent.
Well, Aluta continued. Struggle continues. Threats of war, threats of peace, all over the place. The crises that's happening now in South America with Venezuela and Colombia and Panama being sucked into a new conflict because of the twisted, distorted perception of one individual. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. One individual, Donald Trump, seeing spooks, boogeymans, whatever, ghosts, and never proving it. The thing is, now we see the world community standing up and saying there are war crimes being committed here. Even the Democratic Party, as mousy as they have been in this whole thing, are now calling in the media for hearings to perhaps charge the Secretary of War or an admiral or a black person in uniform that they may be able to charge with violating the human rights of the refugees, no, not the refugees, the survivors of the boat missile strikes that were in a secondary strike blown out of the water. Now that is a direct violation of the military code. And we've known about this, been debating this for several weeks now, but this is not going anywhere.
No, but what you're seeing, like you said, there's been no proof offered whatsoever that Venezuelan people are allowing this to happen. This is strictly regime change. It's strictly resource expropriation. Like I said about a month or so ago, if they really wanted to bomb smugglers and traffickers in drugs, they bombed the CIA. Because the CIA controls much of the global drug traffic. We think it's the mafia. It's not. They subcontract to the CIA. One of the reasons they wanted to go after the Taliban was because when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, they actively suppressed the opium trade there.
That is true.
There are pictures right after the invasion of Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was invaded for numerous reasons. Resources, the land, so they could have the pipelines that run oil into several routes into Eurasia and into Europe, also down through to the Indian Ocean. But mainly, there are actually pictures of United States soldiers guarding the poppy fields until the Taliban came in and said, "Oh no, that's it. We're going to do away with that." So you have Afghanistan and you have Colombia. So why aren't they dealing with Colombia? Why is it Venezuela? Oh, maybe because Venezuela has all this oil and natural gas and other minerals, and they want to depose a duly elected leader of that country. Like you said, they will drag Colombia. What's the other? Not Panama. What's the other country that's borders them?
Guyana?
No, it's Uruguay or something.
Peru?
No, there's another country that I skimmed something today about that. This is just war. This is from a guy who campaigned that I'm not going to start any new wars. I'm going to end the wars that we're dealing with. And, as soon as I get in office, and I'm committed to peace. I'm not going to, we're going to make deals. We're not going to engage in slaughter. Right. How's that turning out? Not only that, but domestically. Now he's threatening to go into New Orleans. Now, when you look at what's going on, did the governor of Louisiana ask for assistance? Has the mayor of New Orleans asked for assistance? Is there some kind of emergency there that would warrant ICE or the militarized National Guard to go in there? And when we're watching all of this stuff, this is a battle of truth versus fakery. The claims on both sides, and it's whether it's on the left or the right. And so unfortunately, a lot of people are too lazy to look into it and see things and think for themselves. And so they're falling for the okie doke. And a lot of it, in my mind, is deliberately being done to harden the lines of division, divisiveness, and partisanship in this country, to the point that there is an outbreak of civil unrest. There is growing acrimony and hatred amongst different groups. So now
within the United States.
So now they're going after the Somalis in Minnesota, and the ones here, and Trump is bombing Somalia.
He's bombing their homeland, so he wants them out of the United States to go back to their whole countries. Oh,
And see
Make me
what
want to holler, throw up both my hands, Bobby Jennings.
both my hands, yeah, Marvin Gaye. And then just as an aside, Gil Scott Heron did a good version of that too, that song also. But
Mm-hmm.
again, what we're seeing is he wants that. He's chaos. He's like the bull in the china shop. That's his MO. He does things like, oh, we're gonna have Doge. Well, Doge was not a real department. Only Congress. If you believe their constitution and you follow their constitution, the executive can't just create a new department. So Doge was bogus. You couldn't just change the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War, even though that's what it is, the Department of Imperialism and War. But a lot of the things he's doing are designed to create chaos. And unfortunately, we're caught up in the middle because, again, game theory, we don't know who the players are. And we think that political game is the game that can save us when it can't. For an example, there was a documentary on PBS this week on Thurgood Marshall.
Mm.
And it talked about, it was only about an hour, so it really couldn't get into a lot of his work.
Mm-hmm.
But even at the end, he said, we were naive. We thought winning Brown versus Board of Education, and by the way, that wasn't the case that he said was the most significant that he won. Out of the 29 of the 32 cases he tried and won, he felt that the voting rights, the voting situation was the pinnacle. But he said it was naive. And not only was he naive to think that they would just comply, what the forces that shouldn't, the powers that shouldn't be did was they hijacked the movement. The movement was designed to enforce the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been enforced, by the way, since it was passed. Enforcing the 14th Amendment would have meant that the states would have to appropriate equal resources to the various communities, to those schools. So you wouldn't have the rundown shacks in the black neighborhood and the great schools in the white neighborhood. The funding would have been similar or equal. What they did, they circumvented it by the whole notion of integration. No, we're not going to invest in your communities. We'll send a couple of y'all to these white schools. And that's what happened. And so the resistance to that distracted everybody. So you don't have the enforcement of the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, equal resources, all of that. That's why you still have a lot of the conditions that exist today, whether it's on primary level or higher education level. Because I was involved in a situation where we sued the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the very same thing, because of what they did, how they withheld funds from Cheney.
Mm.
But again, we think the 13th Amendment actually abolished slavery. It didn't. It hasn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the prison industrial complex. We think the 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection under the law. It doesn't on any level, not just in the criminal system. And the 15th Amendment guaranteed us rights. We're still dealing with the machinations. That's what all these gerrymandering things are all about now.
All right.
But we've been duped into believing what we've been told and what we were indoctrinated to believe in school, because that's what that is. It's not real education. It's indoctrination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A couple of comments come in. You just reminded me, check the Facebook. And I do see Eddie is in the house. He says he shares a few comments, and he says, as corporations downsize with layoffs and closing, we the people use up all of our savings and retirement dollars just trying to make it through the storm. But I can't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It's this is this not a continuation of the non-melanated beings to take over the world? Trump still has a few more countries to bring in under the World Bank system. And he writes something about the scholarship program. I don't know what that is referring to, but Trump trying to take over the world, is it too late for that? Is the world already on another trajectory and just hadn't informed the US president that is going elsewhere with the future?
Well, the trajectory is the one that they want, but there's another trajectory of you have the multipolar group. Now, some people say, well, they're part and parcel of all of this. They're just working on another level. When the smoke clears, you're still going to have the one world government and unitary economic system, et cetera, et cetera. The trajectory that this country is in is unsustainable. As much as some people might want to turn it around, you can't pay the money back unless you have a day of jubilee like they did in the ancient world. And because the banksters control it, all you're going to do is, okay, you wipe that off. Well, they're still going to, because of the system, as long as you have the Federal Reserve and all of this, you'll always be under usury, massive usury. So that's not a solution. Revolution is not going to be a solution because there's no unity. And the other factor is Europe is in chaos. This whole Ukraine thing has exposed them to the point where their leadership is so corrupt, so bankrupt, that they will acquiesce to the United States and to certain interests and allow themselves to be just wiped out. For example, the pipelines that were destroyed that were bringing liquefied natural gas into Europe from Russia has hurt Germany, because Germany was the most robust and vibrant community in Europe. Well, look at what that has done to their energy prices. Now, look at behind the scenes, the United States has boosted its gas exports to Europe. They send it over there via tankers as opposed to gas line. So you see how the United States has undermined the security and well-being, health, safety, and well-being of Europe, their supposed allies. And it's not just Donald Trump. This is under Biden and to some degree Obama. So that trajectory, again, is unsustainable. The Ukrainians are losing, yet they're continuing to pump money and resources into that situation. So how is that going to play out? And then just assume for a minute that Trump's peace plan is viable and it's workable. Look at what Europe is doing to undermine that stuff. So do they really want peace, or they want a continuation of war? Because just like the United States and the Europeans hate the Haitians because of what they did to them, they hate the Russians from what the Tsar did to the banksters when he sided with Lincoln in the Civil War, so-called Civil War, the war between the states. So once you get on their X list, that's it.
Yeah. You had mentioned about the bombing of the Nord Stream line pipeline that was carrying natural gas into Europe from Russia. Um, I was unaware that in November of this year, just a few weeks ago, a man was extradited from Italy to Germany for being suspected of, quote, coordinating the sabotage of the Nord Stream gas pipeline in 2022. He was extradited to Germany, where he is expected to stand trial. Do you think that during this trial, this man suspected of coordinating it will give up his American associates? From my understanding, it was really about the Central Intelligence Agency coordinating the destruction of that pipeline. And then
No, I don't
America
think
was
so.
conveniently stepped in and says, oh, don't worry, we'll take it over. We'll export our expensive natural gas to you.
No, I don't really. He's just a patsy. He's somebody that they even if he was in a part of it, he's probably not going to snitch on his his co-conspirators, even if he knew who it was. I mean, more than likely, he was just a stooge that was separated of various layers of other players. He doesn't really know who was pulling the string. Because keep in mind, Victoria Nuland admitted in a leaked phone call. Let's just assume that it's true. And it's not some more fakery. They spent $5
Mm-hmm.
billion to bring about the color revolution in Ukraine. How much of that money could have gone to improve the infrastructure, the bridges, roads, laying of cables and other infrastructural improvements in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
How much of that could have gone into improving education in this country, pushing for vocational education or some kind of robust and valid education, as opposed to a lot of the BS that's going on now, for
Mm-hmm.
to stop young people from being debt servants. You know, they got all this debt, can't find a job in their chosen field, so they have to adjust, make do, and a lot of them are the people that you're talking about that are sleeping in their car.
Mm-hmm.
They can't afford to get married. They can't afford to buy a house.
And what was the figure you said on the investment in the orange revolution or green revolution in um,
$5
Ukraine?
billion. That's what
5
Victoria.
billion.
Yeah.
Now, how much then has the U.S. invested since this war in Ukraine has been going on? I'm looking at Perplexity, which has become my favorite of my search engines, and it said U.S. investment in Ukraine war totals between 130 billion and 183 billion as of mid 2025, depending on the source and definition of investment. So, yeah, that's quite a bit. The numbers are kind of all over the place, but U.S. Department of Defense cites $184.8 billion through March of 2025 under Operation Atlantic Resolve, covering Europe-wide military activities. So, woof, that's
Yeah, but look at
pretty amazing.
add to the growing siphoning off of money to Israel in their war in the Levant. Not just Gaza. I'm talking about their wars against what they're getting ready to go against Lebanon, what they're doing in Syria and other places.
And do we have any idea of what that is?
I have no idea, but you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, just trying to check and see if I can find that particular figure. U.S. investment in Israel wars is provided at least 21.7 billion in direct military aid since the start of that operations, but anywhere as high as 37 billion dollars has been spent across the area over the time.
That doesn't include, or does it include, the normal appropriations that they just give them because they're being extorted by the Zionists? But
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. We're at the point, Baba Junis, we're going to have to wrap up today's conversation. It's been an ongoing, very interesting conversation. Dwara will be with us next week. He assured me of that. And so we always appreciate having his contributions to this shows as well. He's a great source of research. He documents everything he says very, very well and shares those resources. But also, I like having the brother in this circle because he offers a fresh, young person's perspective to the conversation that many times is quite a compliment to what you and I have to contribute.
yeah, for me, it's like, well, there's hope that there are people in the pipeline who are committed to our people, who are uncompromising and not going to sell out. And let me use that as a segue to encourage our people to be as supportive of LIB as you can. I know that we don't have access, that JP Morgan Chase is not going to be a sponsor here, BlackRock, Vanguard, they're not going to support us because from where they're coming from, he who pays the piper calls the tune. We're not going to allow them to call the tune, so they're not going to support us. But you can make a difference. You can make a difference in terms of how many months LIB radio stays on the air, what good it can do. Because it's not just right now, but people, because you can view it on demand, folks can go up and look at it later. They can double check and fact check what we say and call us on anything that we are in error or we make a mistake. But nonetheless, for the most part, when you go to platforms like this, platforms like Odyssey, you don't see this type of programming there. You don't see melanated people giving out this type of information. Look at Candace Owens. And I have great respect for her because she has courage. She's out there raising issues, but she's in the crosshairs of designers. And I'm hoping they just don't do what they often do, is just eliminate her, physically eliminate her. We're in their crosshairs, but they've done it in such a way over the past several years. Like I said, they attempted to deplatform him. They kicked him off of YouTube. They demonetized him. All this to shut us down, to silence us, to be an example. We're still here, but we need your continued support. If you don't do anything else, just send up some strong vibrations to the ancestors and to the energy field that sustains us.
Or they could just share the link to today's show. That does require a little bit more than just vibing us into our long-term success. If you can't support us monetarily, and I understand the position many of us are in is very dire, and it's hard for us to allocate $5, $10 even to support something. Share the link. That's not going to cost you anything, and it could very well likely be that you could be the one to share the link to someone who will be inspired by what they hear, that will be able to make a very large contribution. See, all of my friends and associates on my newsletter list are not rich people, and I think you're probably experiencing the same thing, Baba Junius. But somebody out there has what they call it 6 degrees of separation. Someone out there knows someone who is a millionaire and may be able to make a patronage to what we are doing here at LIB Radio. Others are doing it as well and uplifting our people through their communications, but we're long well established here. We're the long player in the game. And personally, I think we do it better.
And we have good intentions, and we've demonstrated that over 20-something years.
That's right. That's right. So for Africa One Rights, please hit the like button. Only 2 likes and 16 watching. What's up with that? And that 16 watching is, unfortunately, there was a time about 4 months ago when we would have 40 to 50 people, sometimes over 50 people simultaneously just on the Rumble page.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to improve our performance, people. We are going to do the best we can to improve our performance. Robert Junius and I are going to do the best we can, and so is Brother Dwyer, to keep relevant information coming to you, but we're asking you to contribute as well.
Ashe. And so as we close out, give it some deep thought, meditate on that, and come up with some ways, in addition to what we've already suggested, hitting the like button, telling your friends, sharing the link. Come up with some ways that you can be supportive of what we're doing.
That's right. That's right. A luta continua. The struggle continues, Robert Junius. And thank you for being a significant part of what we do here on LIB Radio. I am because we are, Brother Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, bye. Stay well.
Right.
Stay strong.
All right. We wish you peace and prosperity. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for being a part of what we do here on LIB Radio, for tuning in today. And for all of you who sent in messages and interacted with us, we are so very grateful to be your favorite. We'd love to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV, livinginblack.com. And on that note, we are out of here for today. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.